Welcome into OutKick, the show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I appreciate all of you hanging out with me as we get ready to roll into the NFC and AFC championship games. There is a lot going on in the world of sports, politics, pop culture, and beyond. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us here. We'll have a special NFC AFC championship show with Kelly Stewart that is coming up here shortly. But in the meantime, I'm going to give you some winners in the NFL. And we've got a free square on Prize Picks this week. So you cannot lose. Jaden Daniels, Washington quarterback, over 1/2 passing yard. That is a free square. We cannot lose. More on that one. More passing yards for Jaden Daniels. A definite win that we cannot lose on. All right. Saquon Barkley. I understand that everybody on the planet is going more on Saquon Barkley because he has been absolutely unstoppable. The yardage total, however, is up to 130.5 yards. That is a monster number in a playoff game, even though Washington has not been great on the defensive side of the ball. I am going to go less on the 130.5 rushing yards coming out for Saquon Barkley. I missed on this one, but I think I'm going to hit this week. Josh Allen, more than 1/2 rushing or receiving touchdown. I feel like he is going to have a big game and find a way to put forward a touchdown. He had 2 last week's in last week's games. And then when it comes to passing yards, I want to make sure that I go in here. Remember, we got an NFC, AFC championship game. I am going to go. Some of these numbers are really, really interesting. I'm going to go less than 251.5 passing yards from Patrick Mahomes. All right? So if we hit on this will pay out at 10-1. Jaden Daniels, we got an automatic win, basically, free square. Saquon Barkley, less on 130.5 rushing yards. Josh Allen, more on 1/2. He has to get a touchdown, rushing or receiving. And Patrick Mahomes, less on 251.5 passing yards. So that is the pick. And you can make sure that you don't miss out on the action with Prize Picks. What I just gave you is a 10-1 winner. And you need to go sign up right now. Go to prizepicks.com, use code OutKick, and you will be well on your way to getting $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. You can play in Texas. You can play in Florida. You can play in California. You can play in Georgia. 40-plus states right now where you can play Prize Picks. And super easy. Pick more or less. NFC, AFC, they're giving you an NFC championship, basically free win, and you get $50 when you play $5 when you use the code OutKick. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, we got a lot of games to run here in the Thursday edition of the OutKick show, and I want to start off. I just talked to you about the NFC and the AFC championship games. I'm going to be picking the Bills, just a heads up. I'm going to be picking the Bills, and I'm going to be picking, I think, Washington. I haven't placed my bets yet, but the number's kind of high. We're going to break that down for you in earnest. I'm rooting for the Bills now because I want Bills fans to get a title. And certainly Eagles fans have gotten a title recently. Chiefs fans are going for their 3rd straight. I know Washington hasn't won a Super Bowl since, I think I'm right, 1991. But while that is a long time ago now, they've won 3 Super Bowls, I think, the Washington Redskins did. And so it's nowhere near the awful turmoil that Bills fans have had over the years. And so that is my breakdown for the NFC and the AFC championship games and where I think that is going to go. But I wanted to start off. The numbers came out on the college football playoff, I believe, yesterday afternoon. And I think the final number, if I remember correctly, was 22.1 million viewers for Ohio State Notre Dame, which was down from 25 million-ish viewers that watched the game last year between Michigan and Washington. And it was down massively off the first year of the playoff back in 2014. Game was played in 2015, but it's 2014 season, when I believe 34 million people watched Oregon play Ohio State. So what's going on? And look, there was a small audience in the COVID year when Alabama played Ohio State. But for those of you who remember that year, and I certainly remember it really, really well, Ohio State only played like 6 games that year, if I remember correctly. The Big Ten canceled the season along with the Pac-12, and then both leagues came back and they ended up playing again. My point on that is I understand why that number was low. And then the other low number, this was the third lowest on record. The other low number was the 65-7 Georgia game. I think it was 38-7 against TCU at the half. Everybody just turned that game off because it was such a mismatch, and there wasn't a lot of reason to continue to watch. So I break all of that down because I do think it's significant here. What's going on with college football? Let me confess to you something that I think I got wrong. I thought a 12-team playoff would lead to a much higher viewership down the stretch run. Why did I think that? I thought people would buy in and would be way more interested because they would say, okay, this Ohio State run, they beat Tennessee, they beat Oregon, they beat Texas. I want to make sure that I'm watching this. I've kind of bought in on this team. I've learned some of the players. That's typically what might happen in, say, the NCAA tournament, whereas a team makes the run to the Final Four and wins 4 straight games. You'll learn more about the team, the coach, the program, the players, and the ideal scenario is by the time you get to the Final Four, the audience is growing. It's not happened. So here's something that I was wrong about. Numbers really didn't change very much throughout the course of the college football playoff. Why was that? Why does the ratings and the audience skyrocket in the NFL as the number of games diminishes? Over 50 million people probably will watch the AFC and NFC championship games, and then over 100 million people will watch the Super Bowl. Right now, it feels like college football's ceiling is around 30 million viewers. Why is that? Why is that happening? Why are the numbers tapping out where they are? I would submit to you that college football hasn't done a great job growing its game. There are not casual college football fans. That can be good. It means you're deeply passionate for your team. It means you are less interested in the sport as a whole. Way more people are NFL fans than are college football fans. I thought that we would grow the ceiling potentially of college football, but we have not with a 12-team playoff. Now, some of you are going to say, well, it went on too long. I get it. Others of you are going to say, well, they didn't play the Final Four on New Year's Day. That made it more complicated. Some of you out there are going to say, well, they put the championship game on MLK Day on Inauguration Day. Understood. Some of you were way more interested in watching Trump signing inaugural orders from his desk, doing press conferences. I was at the inaugural balls. Some of you may have been watching the coverage of the inaugural balls more so than the game if you didn't care about Notre Dame or Ohio State. I understand all of that. But I do think if you're a rational college football fan who wants your sport to grow, and I am that, I think even my most ardent critic would say, yeah, Clay does love college football. I do. It's my favorite sport. We got to elevate the ceiling. I don't know that we're making the best decisions to grow the game and bring in more fans. Now, some of you are purists, and you're like, I don't want any casual fans. I disagree. I want as many people as possible to come in and watch the games because that's how you know the strength of the business. NBA has collapsed. I don't want college football one day to be sitting around and thinking, hey, what's going on here? Some of you, and I went and read the comments. Adam, go look up how many comments there were to my sharing of the television ratings here. Through the roof. Some of you are saying, I know there was over 6,000 of you commenting in there. Some of you are saying, and this is an ominous take, I try to go read. When I ask you to share your opinions, I try to go through and read a decent number of them. And by the way, if you want, when I ask on social media a question, you can always follow me at Clay Travis. If you really like a comment too, I would encourage you guys to like it because it bumps it up towards the top and I'm more likely to see them. I can't read all 6,000 comments or 8,000 comments or however many of them there end up being, but I can read the ones that 50 or more people say, hey, I like this. This is an interesting take. So if you want me to see something, the more likes that it gets, also it rewards people for smart comments or funny comments or whatever it might be. That's the best way to make it so that I see it or that other people who go into the comments see it. The ominous take that I saw out there was most people don't like minor league sports. I understand some of you might go and watch a lot of minor league baseball. Most people don't. And the professionalization of college football and college sports in general may, for some people, reinforce the fact that it's just a minor professional league. And the reason why people watch is because they feel a deep affiliation for their favorite school because they went there or they grew up a fan of the school or at some point in time they felt connected. I don't think there's any doubt that the average college football fan feels a much deeper connection to his or her team than the average pro sports fan does. But the argument out there, I hadn't really thought about it very much, of, hey, this is just pro sports now, and the players are mercenaries. They're not, even if it was a little bit of a lie, they're not picking your school because they love it. They're simply signing contracts with whoever pays them the most money. And as soon as they leave, they have no concern about the university like you do if you went there, or if you are a fan, a donor, if it's in your state and you feel like it has a connection to the heartbeat of the fabric of your state. Somebody said in the comments, hey, this was just Kansas State's quarterback for Ohio State playing against Duke's quarterback for Notre Dame. These are just mercenaries. It's hard for me to care. And even if it's true, and it often likely was, that college athletes are being paid to go to schools before NIL was legal, it did feel when a recruit picked up your cap and put it on, even if it was fiction, there was an element of kinship that created for you. I don't think your average fan feels that same kinship in college football when you're like, well, we gave him $1 million more than everybody else. Do you remember there's a great line? I think it was Charles Barkley said he loves when athletes say they made a choice because God told them to go somewhere. And Charles Barkley said, I'm paraphrasing him. He's like, isn't it amazing that God always tells them to go to the team that's paying them the most money? It is funny, right? But I don't begrudge that. You're a capitalist. Most of you would change jobs if somebody offered to pay you 20% more to do a similar job. So I don't begrudge an athlete who takes more money to go elsewhere, but I do think it takes away from the idea, even if it was not 100% true, that somebody fell in love with your university, your stadium, your history, tradition, and that was why they came to the school, not because you just gave them more of a bucket of cash. I do wonder about that. I also think it's hard to care as much about a player when they're perpetual free agents. Even in the NFL, they don't have very many one-year contracts, where 1 year a guy is playing for the Chicago Bears and the next year the guy's playing for the Green Bay Packers. And I think if that does occur, we understand because somebody came as a free agent, other guy got to bid. Now, you got guys going 1 year from Alabama to Ohio State, or even crazier, 1 year for Alabama. Next year they play for Auburn. I'm a Tennessee basketball fan. Guy named Jonas Adu played his entire career at Tennessee. Then Arkansas gave him a bunch of money, and now he's on the Razorbacks. It feels weird. I think guys going from one school to another in the same conference with no sitting out between them, it definitely dilutes the idea of, oh, this guy really loves a school like I love a school. And I wonder if that's happening. I also think, why is it that the NFL, and by the way, the NFL has a lot of advantages, fantasy, casual fans who are living in cities. There are lots of reasons players can stay for years and years, and so you can root for the same guy or be a fan of the same guy for a long time. But why is it that the college football audience basically didn't go up? The same rough number of people who watched Notre Dame, Indiana, or Tennessee, Ohio State were still watching Ohio State, Notre Dame. It didn't stair-step build like happens with the NFL, like happens with the NBA Finals, even though I've denigrated the NBA Finals before. Like sometimes happens, at least on an individual game basis, with the NCAA tournament. NCAA tournament's interesting because sometimes it peaks. In fact, I think it does the opening weekend when we just have this cornucopia of college basketball. The Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday opening weekend from 64 still basically, from 64 to 16 is actually, to me, the most entertaining part of the college basketball tournament. Maybe if they did it well, that opening round of the college football playoff would be the same way. But again, it's alarming to me that there aren't new fans being created. It's basically the same fans. They just have fewer games to pick, and so the audience ends up very similar to what it started with. My argument in favor of college football playoff was that it would mean more fans were interested and it would grow the sport. We didn't see that. Now, would it help if they simulcast it on ABC? Yes. Would it help? I think I've seen a lot of you talking about this. Would it help if there were multiple networks promoting and airing the games? I heard a lot of you, or saw a lot of you saying in the comments that you didn't actually know the game was going on. Like you just kind of looked around and it snuck up on you because you're busy and there are a lot of things going on there. That's intriguing in and of itself to me as well. By the way, Adam looked it up. 8,200 comments, 14,000 likes on that individual college football rating. That is a sign of your passion. And how many of you, like me, are super passionate fans of college football? I don't know all the answers, but I do think that college football has got a real challenge going there, and we're going to have to figure out what needs to be worked out. One of the things that needs to happen is you can't go all the way to January 20th. You cannot be still playing the college football playoff when the NFL playoffs start. I do think that there's an argument that a lot of people, 2 games on Saturday for the NFL, 2 games on Sunday for the NFL, that a lot of people were footballed out. You got basically 7 or 8 hours back-to-back days, Saturday, Sunday. By the time you get to Monday, there are a lot of people that aren't as interested. Not having the games on Saturday, Sunday, I also think can factor in, but all of the title games by and large have been on Monday. They just haven't been this late into the calendar. And I know, again, this was a particularly unique circumstance with Trump being re-inaugurated for a second term that felt very historic, and also I think soaked some of the oxygen out of the air. All right, so we're going to continue to have that conversation, but I would encourage you to go look at that tweet. Lots of reaction rolling into that. Halftime of the game between Notre Dame and Ohio State. I flagged this and told you I would talk about it today. They had a couple of minute address from Donald Trump that ESPN played. Why did that happen? I think ESPN is basically acknowledging that they've been getting things wrong and that you guys have been holding them accountable, and they're basically bowing down to you in the wake of missing the national anthem and the moment of silence at the Sugar Bowl after the terror attack in New Orleans. I think that miss struck at the culture, even for Disney CEO Bob Iger, for ESPN President Jimmy Pitaro, for VP Burke Magnus. Those guys are sports fans. I think they saw that and said, what kind of culture have we built that we could screw up something this significant? And sometimes it takes an awful event for you to recognize the path that you're on. I'm not comparing the two things, but you can hear people criticize your choices until sometimes you really screw up. You don't recognize how much you've screwed up. And I think that's ESPN with the culture that they created there. They're looking around and saying, how did this happen? You know, in sports, sometimes you can get lax as a coach and you can get lax in your game preparation, and then you can go out and you can get waxed on the field, and that's an outgrowth of the culture that you created. The game is like an exam, and I bet some of you out there have been in school and you've taken it easy. Hey, I got an A or a B in this class last 6 weeks, last semester. I don't need to worry about it. I've got this. You don't do the same prep that got you the A or the B, and then you sit down for a test and boom, you get a C or a D or maybe even an F. That's the consequence of the culture that you created as it pertains to the class. I think that's what happened with ESPN. And I think that's why they had the address from Trump. I know because our criticism of ESPN just at OutKick went mega viral. I know that everybody read the article that I wrote in the larger world of sports media. I know that CBS, NBC, Fox, they were all looking around in disbelief that ESPN missed the national anthem and the moment of silence, such that Burke Magnus went on a podcast and said, yeah, we screwed that up. We shouldn't have made that error. I think they're now addressing that. I got a prediction for you. You guys know I work on Big Noon. I would love for us to have Donald Trump or J.D. Vance, maybe both, come and pick games at one of the Big Noon games this fall. I'm going to pitch it. I don't know that it'll happen or not. J.D. Vance, big Ohio State fan. Fox has a lot of Ohio State games. I would have those guys out and let them pick games if I were making that choice, and they were willing to come. I'm going to blow your mind with this one. I would not be stunned if game day lets Donald Trump or J.D. Vance come and be the guest picker, because I think they are making a conscious decision at ESPN to recognize that they went too far down the far left-wing, woke, slippery slope. And I think missing the anthem and missing the moment of silence, that was a holy crap moment of the failure of the ESPN culture. And I think they are now going back and trying to redress and fix that error that they demonstrated when they made that choice. Again, this is just my bet. I could be wrong. It might not happen. but it's just my bet about how all of this is going to shake down going forward. I think ESPN has basically waved the white flag. I think they are acknowledging that we've been right about a lot of things at OutKick. Heck, I think if OutKick were still independent, ESPN might be trying to buy it because their brand is so on the ropes with sports fans that they need to have something like OutKick. And I think that OutKick is the most influential voice in sports media right now because we speak for the vast majority of sports fans who believe in common sense, sanity, and frankly, that's why our audience is skyrocketing. And why I think 2025 is going to be such an opportunity for us to make a huge difference. Certainly everybody in the Trump White House is reading OutKick every day. And I think most people at ESPN are too. Speaking of the exact opposite of this, CNN has fired 200 people, representing 6% of its workforce, as its overall inaugural day audience compared to 2021 dropped 83%. Now, I was reading this morning the decision-making. They are now trying to pivot into digital. They said, we're now going to invest in digital as the CNN linear network is taking body blows. They're sending Jim Acosta off into the hinterlands. They're taking away his 10 a.m. show and giving it back to Wolf Blitzer. Reportedly offering Jim Acosta a show at midnight, which is like sending him to TV Siberia. What's going on here? Here's the problem that CNN has so far as I can analyze it. None of their hosts would have a strong fan base if they weren't on CNN. Follow me along on this. Anderson Cooper has been on CNN for what, like 20 years? If Anderson Cooper left CNN tomorrow, I think he would be like Don Lemon. I don't think he'd be able to build a YouTube channel. I don't think tons of people out there are clamoring for Anderson Cooper to be able to compete in the digital landscape. Now, I say this as a guy who came from the internet, right? What did Bain say? I'm from the mud. Like, I was born here. I had an audience of 0 and started in the internet and had to build it, okay? Internet is intensely competitive. Right now, a lot of you are watching on YouTube. I love you. Some of you are watching on Facebook. Some of you are watching on TikTok. Some of you are watching on Twitter. Some of you are watching, not even watching, you're just listening to this. You guys are consuming this all over the place, and I'm competing with every single person on the entire internet. CNN is only competing on television with MSNBC and Fox News, and they're getting their ass kicked. CNN has no real brand. CNN's on-air personalities have no real strong fans. Would Wolf Blitzer have 1 million people listen to his podcast? I don't think so. Would Jake Tapper deliver a huge audience if he wasn't on CNN? Doesn't deliver a big one now? I don't think so. The idea that CNN, which has a small audience on cable satellite with a limited number of competitors on traditional television, is somehow going to be more successful on the internet, where branding matters more and where competition is far more intense, is crazy to me. If I were in charge of CNN, I would remake the entire network. I would go hire Piers Morgan, and I would put on CNN Piers Morgan's debate show, where he brings on people from a variety of different perspectives and just lets them go after it. I would go out and I would hire Megyn Kelly. I would probably give Scott Jennings a show. I would remake the entire lineup, and I don't know that they're going to be able to do it, but I do think that that would be significant. As is, I think ESPN, I think CNN, I think a lot of these networks are struggling because they can't create superstars anymore. I tweeted, and I really do mean this, I think there are only 2 real brands on television or streaming that create stars now. Fox News and the front page of Netflix. You talk to comedians, if you get on the front page of Netflix with your comedy special, you go from not being able to sell tickets necessarily to selling out arenas. That's how big the audience is on Netflix. You get into that top 10 on the front page of Netflix. They have over 300 million subscribers now. You go from somebody that nobody knows to a celebrity overnight. Same thing can be true of Fox News, which now gets like 75% nearly of the news audience. People tune in and watch Fox News. Trust me. I was on Fox News. I can always tell how big the audience is for Fox News on a given night. When my phone blows up and I hear from a lot of people I haven't heard from in a while, Fox News got a big audience. I was on Sean Hannity inauguration night. My phone lit up. I was on Fox News with Jesse Waters from the RNC convention. Absolute blown up phone. Like, look down after I do the hit and I've got 40 text messages from friends and family, all of whom were watching. That's how I know when the audience is on a different level, but everybody sees it on a normal night. Fox News is the most watched network on all of cable. There's a brand. You walk around, I'm telling you, people come up, they love Fox News. Does anybody really love CNN or MSNBC? I don't think they do. They don't really have a brand. And the idea that CNN is going to somehow go into digital and make a tremendous difference there, I just don't buy. By the way, interesting. This is breaking news while I'm talking to you from Adam. President Trump has signed an order to declassify all of the JFK, RFK, and Martin Luther King Jr. files. We'll see what new information, if any, is in there. All three of those men executed. Assassinated is the better word instead of executed. JFK 63, RFK and MLK 1968. We'll see. Everything will be revealed, Trump said when he signed those orders. I'm going to see. I'm kind of fascinated to see what's in there, just like y'all. What else do I have in here? Looks like Pete Hegseth's going to be confirmed as Secretary of Defense, 51-49. May not happen until tomorrow. Netflix. I mentioned the surge that's going on right now at Netflix. Stock went up over $100, I believe, in $15 yesterday. I flagged this. I was doing my morning reading, and I flagged this because it stood out to me, and I thought it was so interesting. Netflix right now has, let's see, Netflix's market cap, that is the number of shares times the price of the stock. The market cap of Netflix is bigger than the combined market caps of Disney, Comcast, Warner Brothers, Discovery, and Paramount. Everybody in traditional media, Disney owns ESPN, Comcast owns, obviously, the Comcast network, but NBC, Warner Brothers, Discovery, and Paramount, which owns CBS. Warner Brothers, Discovery owns CNN, TNT, and others. Netflix is bigger, and I'm a Netflix shareholder. I have been for a long time. Netflix's market cap is bigger than all of those companies combined. And I saw where its profit margin has now hit 29%. In other words, the free cash flow that Netflix is churning off with over 300 million subscribers is growing. They announced they're going to increase the amount that they charge everybody. This is a massive, monstrous, huge growth company. And I just continue to believe that it's inevitable that Netflix, Amazon, and Apple are going to eventually have every sporting event out there. One reason why Netflix grew, the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight was a huge success. NFL Christmas Day games. They just bought the 2027 and 2031 Women's World Cup. They're going to be adding more and more assets going forward. I just think the Netflix surge is really something worth thinking about. Also, one more thing. I would never believe this. I was mentioning the sudden shift we saw. Ryan Clark went on ESPN's Ryan Clark. I've gone at him off and on, variety of issues over the years. I couldn't believe it. He praised OutKick. He and Bobby Barack, they've gone back and forth for years. I haven't talked to Bobby about it. Evidently, they had a phone conversation. More power to him. I've said this before. He's got an open invite to come on here. We disagree on a lot. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing. I'm of the belief this whole cancel culture era that we see collapsing around us in the early days of Trump, people who disagree should talk more. Like this whole idea of cancel culture and deplatforming and all those other things, toss it to the side. I'm happy to talk with anybody who disagrees with me. I just did a bunch of different, yesterday, super busy. I did Piers Morgan. I did Clay and Buck. I did OutKick. I don't know when they're going to be up, but Jack Carr, Terminal List author, super successful Amazon show. I did Jack Carr's podcast yesterday. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. Awesome dude. And then I did Sage Steele's podcast. I don't know when those are going to be up, but I did almost 2 hours with Jake Carr. I did over 2 hours, I think, with Sage Steele. I think you guys are going to enjoy those conversations. All of those things going on. I did an hour with Pierce, 3 hours with Buck, roughly an hour with you guys. I was talking all day yesterday. So anyway, I'm thinking now about the idea of, in addition to everything else I'm doing more long-form interview shows going forward because I think there's a demand for them. And I just think they'd be interesting. There's lots of people that I would want to talk to for longer than 10 or 15 minutes. And on a radio show, you only get 10 or 15 minutes with most people. So anyway, something I'm kicking around, something I am thinking about. But I appreciate all of you. I think we're at an interesting pivot point in the direction of society. And I think a lot of people are coming around and saying, hey, you know, maybe that guy Clay Travis and that company OutKick, maybe they're not so crazy. Maybe they actually represent the vast majority of the average dudes in America, average sports fan, men and women, and maybe these guys know what they're talking about. Just seeing us win on a level that I'm not sure I've ever seen OutKick win on in the 14-year history of the company when I look at the larger culture and how many people are coming to the places where we have been for some time. I take it as a very good sign. And I love all of you, and you guys are tremendously important for making it happen. So if you like us, click like on YouTube. Go follow me on Twitter. Go follow OutKick. We're everywhere, any social platform. And if you like something that we do, share it with your friends and family. If you like a tweet, text it to somebody. That's how we're growing. That's how OutKick is setting new records every month because of you guys and the response that you have every day to the content that we put out. So, love all of you. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I'm Clay Travis. This has been OutKick, the show.